And we are live for our show all about Altus. We have a special guest tonight. This is Joe Butkevicius. He's joining us from KHS America. He is our expert on all things Altus, Azumi, and Jupiter. And we, of course, are a screw loose. We've got Rachel Simon from Pennsylvania, Kim Jurens from the west coast of Canada, and Adam Petrie from Atlanta, Georgia, and myself, Sarah Stockton, from the center of Connecticut. So, Joe, we are so thrilled to have you on here tonight because you are the reason we exist.
Wow. I don't know if that's condemnation or
Genesis.
The genesis.
No pressure
no,
or anything.
No. So in
No,
a
no pressure.
nutshell, way back in the day, or shortly after I graduated college, I went, Joe, I kind of want to know how to take stuff apart, and I brought you a tenor sax I had rescued from a dumpster that I had put some pads in, and you went, huh, that's not bad.
Yeah. And now look at you.
And now look at me.
Now you're working on flute and cast off the tenor saxophones.
That's right.
Okay, it's all
Wise
good.
choice.
Joe was also the one that pushed me to go to Red Wing.
Excellent.
Because we met on one of the flute forums like way back before Facebook was a thing. So yeah, he pushed me to Red Wing.
Yeah, I consider you both of you my minions. So I shoved you into this, and now you're suffering as a result of me, and it's something I'm proud
So
of.
are you a vampire then? Is that?
Yeah, I'm kind of, yeah.
Cool. Thank
Great.
you.
I like it. That's great. That's good. Yeah. So at the end, after we talk about Altus, we'll talk about your coffin and how you sleep. And
Q&A.
Q&A. But I heard that you have a cool story about how Altus came to be.
Yeah, this is a story I presented at the 2016 NFA. It was one of our Altus showcases, and a lot of people saw it, a lot of people didn't see it, but people always ask the question of the formation of Altus and the partnership between WIB and Tanaka, and how the Altus flutes came about, the development of the Bennett scale. And the presentation kind of talks about the partnership between the two men, and how they met and how the process evolved and how Altus came into being. So if you would like, I can start that now.
Let's do it.
All right, let me share my screen here.
Cool.
And okay, let me just get this started here. There we go. Can we see that? Everybody
Yes.
see that?
Yes.
Okay, so again, this was I did this in 2016, so I'm just going to narrate as we go along. From a couple different corners of the world, you had two men, that one in England, we had William Bennett, as you see, it was a very young William Bennett here. And then from Japan, we had Speedy Tanaka, who had unplanned to meet. And when they did finally meet, it was at the Music Messe in Germany, in Frankfurt. So they didn't plan a meeting there. Bennett happened to be there, and Tanaka, who was just starting out at Altus at the and trying to create a flute with the Altus name, came to Frankfurt to show off what he was working on. So so the two of them go into the Music Messe over there, and they had the booth. There was a crowd that was growing. And I'm not sure if Tanaka was playing or who was playing. Somebody was playing, and there's the beautiful sounds that were coming out
Great
of the
graphics.
Thank you.
Love this.
Of William Bennett, who happened to be passing by, and he heard this great sound, and he was, and he had to come over to investigate. So he goes over to the booth, and he starts to strike up a conversation with Tanaka, and he says to him, come visit me at my home in the UK.
Look how interested he is.
Yeah, and he said, I'd like to offer you some advice for improving your head playing. So he could hear some things, and Bennett, being the player that he was, you want to just tell Tanaka, I got some ideas for you. So Tanaka said, I want to perfect my flute design. He says, let's do it. Basically, is what he said. So the two of them then left Music Messe and went to Bennett's house in England, where I remember right. I think Tanaka stayed probably for about a month. When they arrived there, Bennett offered to give him some materials. He said, I've got some tubes, I've got some silver. I'm going to give this to you to create a head joint. And that was very nice, but Tanaka said, I can't take that, basically. He says, in Tanaka's mind, he said to Wibb, it's not a profession if I work with things offered from others. He says, I must be able to explain the reason behind the action. So you've got these two personalities with Tanaka, who's trying to create something, and Wibb, who wants to help, but they're two of them are very strong personalities who have very strong ideas about what they're doing. With that, the two of them started the collaboration between Altus and Wibb, which eventually became the Bennett scale. Initially, it started with the sound and trying to create the head joint. So this was the first start with the two men getting together and discussing round and round. So you like this round and round?
Yes.
And they talked about, what if I did this? And
I can just see them now.
Yeah, see, and it just kept going around and around. And it asked him his opinion on various things. And
they took some Dramamine before this conversation, right?
This is the part where we go spiraling out of control. No. So
part of any
after all this, they started to make a bunch of head joints. So I don't know if it was actually one head joint a day, but the days went past. They don't know how many head joints they made. Kept making head joints. Try this, change that, and then finally Friday arrives, and they found one head joint. This one particular head joint satisfied both. Wibb loved it. Tanaka loved it. They both loved it. This is what became this was the classic cut head joint that we still offer today. So this was the cut that they designed. The very first one, they actually named it. They called it Friday because it was created on a Friday.
Nice.
So see, Fridays are good for not just being the forerunner to the weekend, but because they make great head joints too. With that, they had some success, and then it became time for Tanaka to board a plane and head back to Japan. Comment on the graphics, Sarah.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
So, it didn't stop there though. So even though that the two of them were far away, they talked regularly back and forth, just like they had done when they were in person. Except Wibb obviously was at home, and Tanaka was back in Japan. But the collaboration never stopped between the two. It was at that point that you'll see here, Tanaka says that he owes a lot of what his study of flute creation due to Wibb's influence, and what he was trying to accomplish influenced him greatly into his flute making skills. And he remarked also that their common idea, both of the men, is that musical instruments are just tools. In other words, you need the musician. By itself, it's this lifeless hunk of metal. And it only comes to life as, in the hands of an artist, both the craftsman and the player. So this is the respect that both men had for each other. And Tanaka had always wanted to leave his sophisticated skills for future generations. He wanted people to recognize Wibb's contribution to not just his flute playing skills, but his knowledge of the instrument as well, into the forming of the Altus flute. And I would say at this point, I think they're very successful. I mean, I hope everyone knows the influence that Wibb has on Altus. He's our favorite son as well. With that, the Altus flute factory was pretty much born. So, in the tradition of the handmade flutes, you see some standard pictures which you see in a lot of flute workshops of hand making flutes, and of course padding, shims. Yes, we can talk about shims all day long. With that, and here's an early picture of some of the factory members with Wibb, and you can also see Lorna in there, Lorna McGee. and just having a good time. And here's a picture of the Altus factory
Oh my God,
in
so pretty.
Osimino. It's absolutely a beautiful
Beautiful.
location. The mountain is in the background.
Oh, wow.
If you had a view from the
I
front,
see that just right.
yeah, it's people ask us about our kanji symbol on our, and the Japanese look at it and they don't understand what it means to, because it has not the same meaning.
Huh.
And so we tell them, it says, well, we use the kanji symbol because it just looks like the Altus factory. And then they're like, oh, now I understand. It has
Okay.
nothing to do with the kanji symbol.
Oh,
So
that's funny. Do you know
yeah.
what it means? What it actually means?
uh, I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. But
Hopefully, it's not like
anyway,
a swear word or something.
no. That's
Okay.
that's the whole story right there.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
So,
I
Very
love
cool.
that.
Excellent. Yeah. That's really great.
I miss Lorna and Wib because I usually get to see them. We have Pender Island Flute Festival here, or the Flute Retreat every summer,
Yep.
and I usually get to see them and sit and do crazy acoustical work with Wib. We sit there and like play with tone holds and things.
there's all sorts of things. When you start to talk about
Yeah,
flutes
kind
with
of fun.
Wib, it can go really out of control. And
But it's fun because
our
it's
kinda
fun
guy.
to have somebody who's just sort of like, just do it. I mean, it's temporary. Put this in. If you don't
Yeah,
like it,
the
pick it up.
stuff in the tone holes.
Yeah, it is.
I've
So
seen
I
that.
see a lot of that stuff up here from him, and it's always just interesting to see. It's good to have kind of a carefree, let's just try it and see what happens. And I'm sure that served Altus well over the years too, with that kind of let's just try it.
Mm. So, so that was a awesome history on Altus, and I learned some things that I didn't know before. So, how does that tie into KHS and Jupiter and Azumi, and how is that all interconnected?
okay, so when Jupiter was first formed, KHS is a Taiwan corporation owned by Wuxi and the Shea family. And a lot of flute players probably are familiar with Marina Shea, who was the face of Altus when they were out in California for some years, who's related directly uh, as a Shea. And Wuxi and their love of flutes had their partnership with Tanaka. So at some point, Wuxi bought the Altus factory, and he wanted to help Tanaka promote the flutes. And of course, the road went both ways. So as Jupiter flutes in the early years were not so good, Tanaka had a big hand in helping develop and fixing some of the problems that Jupiter had in the very early years, which that eventually led to the nice quality we have on the Jupiter flutes today. The De Medici flutes, the Azumi flutes. The Medici we don't have anymore. They've been replaced by Azumi at this point, and all under the framework of Altus continuing. So KHS is the large portion. Altus is a very small portion of it, as not an independent subsidiary. It's very much integrated into the company, but they're still on location. KHS has lots of factories. When we talk about Jupiter, KHS makes a lot of things, not just band instruments, wind instruments. We acquired Hohner, so we have all the Hohner. There's fretted instruments, the Hercules stands, Mapex drums, sonar. There's a whole big family of stuff that we have on our palette, and Altus is also one part of that. But the Altus influence into the flute market is huge. It's just has always been a very cooperative partnership.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
And the Zoomies, speaking of those, that's always one of my top recommended step up flutes, just because they're so reliable, they sound so good, they're built really well, and that's a tough thing to find in that intermediate marketplace a lot of the time. So
Yeah,
how did that spring into being, and what made De Medici sort of peter out and Azumi come in and take its place?
well, manufacturers always are looking for ways to improve products, and they had taken De Medici as far as they could go with it. And after a certain time, a redesign comes in, and then Azumi was born at that time. And there were different cuts you could get on the De Medici. There were basically the 4 different models. When Azumi came along, it was probably around the time when various other manufacturers, and including us, were pairing professional cut head joints with intermediate bodies. So Azumi was our offering into that market. So that replaced the Medici at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Thank you. So do you want to, we had some questions submitted by people on social media. Do you want to dive into those, or is there any more that you want to say about history and whatnot before we?
I want to talk about questions.
Let's do it. Okay.
We can always get into history.
All right, cool. So Mason Moore asked us on Instagram, y'all's favorite Altus model.
Yeah, no.
Great use of an excellent word.
I love y'all. And
yeah,
when
so you have to remember, I'm a Connecticut Yankee living in the South, and I try to talk with my own children here. It's like I raise an eyebrow when they say y'all. I say, are you turning into Southerners? So
Your heart, Joe.
not that I know, but see, now that we've had that discussion with y'all's, I don't even want to get into Ewan's, but
that's where all y'all would have been appropriate.
All y'all,
but thank you.
All y'all.
But
See,
yes.
and then there's the Canadian up here who just listens to it all day, and I find myself saying it occasionally, and that's really a little bit
It's
terrifying.
really
Just so you know, we do not use that up here.
Just don't start saying A. A?
We do say A
Too late.
occasionally.
Yes. All right. Now, what was the question again?
It wasn't
Okay.
Do you have a favorite Altus model?
Do I have a favorite Altus model? No, I do not.
All right.
What I do have as a favorite is not by model, but any particular individual flute. So on any given day when I'm going through flutes, there are particular days, there could be 10, 1507s or 907s or however many I'm looking at in a particular day. And, like everything else that's a production instrument, there are some that are better than others. And there are some that are really great.
Yeah.
And I used to mark some of those every once in a while when I had customers who were really picky. And I said, you got to send them this one because they're not going to accept anything else
Nice.
for that. And this one is a really great flute. So I don't catalog the serial numbers, but every once in a while I'll get one that's really fun. And sometimes they're Azumis. I've had some Azumis. It's kind of like I got like a 2S RBO the other day that I just played it for like a half hour. I said, I could play this out professionally. This thing is great,
I have a client with one, and it's just like, okay.
Yeah. And I think this is such an important topic for players to hear us talking about, because you can't just go buy a flute because that model is good. Like they're all going to be good, but if you take the time and play 3 or 4 of them, chances are you're going to find one that's like, really, really speaks to you. And I think that's not really talked about, that, the exact same model isn't always exactly the same.
Yeah. And we had a bunch of studio players. Nashville is like one of the musician studio capitals of the world. And we have a lot of doublers too, which is kind of funny because the saxophone players who come in, they got a lot of technique, but they have what I call doubler's tone.
Yeah.
You might you didn't start on flute. You didn't start on flute.
Say no more.
You sound like a doubler. It's just, it's not that it's bad tone and they're great players. It's just that that's you recognize it. It's like that's doubler's tone. You didn't start on flute, but they come in and we're trying different flutes, and I had a smattering. I probably had an 807, an 11, and then went into the handmaids, like a gold plated, and one of the seam tubes in there. And they asked me the same question. Well, which one do you like? And it was like, and that particular day, out of the lot that I had there, the 807 was really great. So they had me play all of them, and I said, yeah, that 807 sounds great. And I said, yeah, it's the least expensive of the whole lot too. It's like, which one of you are going to buy it? Or I can go get more.
Good salesmanship.
Yeah. So I think one of them ended up with either a 9 or an 11.
Mhm.
9s and 11s seem to be the big choices for the doublers. They're rock solid flutes. They don't break the bank, and they have great luck with them. And I love hearing the jazz artists who play on those
Mhm.
as well. They sound great on them, even with the doubler's tone. It's just, it's the flute. It's the flute, not the flute.
Like Rachel said, it's an aesthetic. Like it's a
Yeah,
whole other
yeah. So
Well, and I think that as much as like that they like sometimes you just grab one that's the right thing. Even if you have like 7 of the same exact cut head joint, they're not exactly the same. They're cut to exactly the same specs. But the reality is if you pick up 7 of exactly the same spec cut head joint, you may find one that plays like just fits you better, or if it just doesn't. I've had that. I've went through an entire row of head joints. That's the one that's coming home with me.
yeah, there's all sorts of hidden stuff in there, outside of cut, in terms of the grain density in the metal, what the eventual hardness of the metal ends up being from drawing, how the heat was applied when it's soldered together. So outside of just the cut, there are so many different variables that you can keep the same specs, but they're never ever going to be exactly identical.
Mhm.
I love
The
that.
part that I find so neat about that is if you have 2 players that are doing the same thing, it's really common to have 2 players that will gravitate towards 2 of the same head joint, but 2 different head joints in that lot. So it's not like it's one's like markedly just better. It's just one fits you better.
Yeah.
I've had the experience where I've gone through the same thing as another person, and we both sounded amazing on totally different head joints, and we're like, these ones.
Yes.
Yeah, I've always said
So-
that the buying a flute and finding the right flute, it's kind of like buying shoes.
Mhm.
First
Mhm.
of all, what am I playing tennis? Am I going walking? Am I playing soccer? How does this fit my foot?
Yeah.
What works for one person doesn't work for the next person.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah, it is.
just
I have a friend who likes the polar opposite in head joint cuts than I do. And
Mhm.
so it's really great to have her around, because if I'm just like, oh, this flute is just like I know it's sealing, but like, oh my God. And then like I hand it to her and she's like, whoa, and the thing sounds amazing.
Like,
I'm like, okay. And vice versa. Like she'll just be like, oh, how can you play on this? Oh, take it away. And for me, I'm like, no, dude, this is the best thing I've ever played. So it's just
mine.
exactly. It's so good. So you had mentioned something about heat and hardness, and sorry, my computer just came unplugged. And that actually leads into another question that we got submitted, actually from one of our tech patrons, Daniel Rodriguez. He says, does the sintering process for the 996 silver flutes make it more rigid than the sterling flutes? Can you tell us what sintering is first?
Yeah, I need to explain the sintering process,
Yes.
and it's actually a 997 flute, so there's probably a typo, but the
Sure. Yeah.
sintering process is what most of the boutique silvers that are out there, sterling silver 925, you're talking about various silver content and various other stuff in the alloy, and you have to melt it all together to create this process. With the sintering process, you don't actually ever melt everything together. So 997 silver is we call it the pure silver. It's not, there's that small percentage in there that is not silver, and those are the binder elements. So what they do with when you're making a sintering process is they compact the silver grains into a mold under really high pressure. And then at the end, it goes into a sintering furnace, which is just enough to bind the molecules together without actually melting anything. So you get this, I don't really want to describe it as harder or softer, because there is heat involved from that. I can tell you about the sintered tubes that, because Altus has to buys tubes like other flute makers buys tubes. There's one manufacturer in Japan who's pioneered this process that they buy the tubes from, who created this process, for them. And I will tell you that the rejection rate is extremely high. It's really hard to get a good flute tube, because usually what happens is if you don't get the heat right in the sintering process, the surface is grainy.
Huh.
It's not going to polish out well. So, there's a high rejection rate with that. The good thing from the sintering company is that they can just powder it again and start over.
Right.
But it's hard to make them in terms of the whole the body tube out of in that particular process. And incidentally, what a lot of people don't know is all the key tubing is also 997 on our.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
so you
really
might,
cool. That's unique, actually. Fairly
yeah,
unique,
you might
anyway.
notice that the because it's more pure silver, you can get tarnished quicker on
Okay.
the key tubes as a result, simply because it is that pure silver. So if you're prone to that, just don't freak out if you see tarnish forming on the there first, as opposed to the rest, because the rest of the keys are regular sterling silver.
But the tubing is the
Interesting.
Yes.
that.
Interesting. So from a repair person's perspective, does that influence how you would swedge or fit the keys at all?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. Same process.
Okay.
It's silver, which is soft, and it's reinforced with the trace amounts to make it just rigid enough. So it's a different process.
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you. Let's see. We had another techie question from Joao Ferreira, who is also one of our tech patrons, and he would like to know where he can buy Altus or Izumi pads in Europe.
There are many European distributors. There's a list of them. The best thing that I would suggest is, depending on which country he is,
I believe it's in Portugal.
Portugal. I would send in a request in the contact form for Altus, and you can send it into ours in the U.S. office if it's easier, or whichever one is easier, and we'll get those routed to whoever it needs to go to. I'll usually send that over to Mayuka-san who's our contact over at the Altus factory, and to say, oh yes, we will take care of them and put them in touch with the correct person.
Nice.
I know QS Music does a lot of stuff in Europe, but based in Germany. But depending on, there's other small companies depending on where you are and where you need to have it shipped to. US is easy; just contact us.
Great.
Or Canada. Hi, Kim.
Great. Okay. So
I see
we
a
had
lot of Altus around
one more question. I keep my power cord just does not want to stay plugged
You
in.
keep pulling your power
I
cord
know.
out.
Well, it's one of those magnet things. So. All right. At Mr. Waggy on Instagram says, so I noticed that my Izumi didn't come with an eMech. And I don't know if it had a G-Disc installed or they had a G-Disc installed after the fact. And now they want to know why the A is flat. When this is kind of, I don't think it's specifically an Izumi question, really, but perhaps you could talk about that.
Well, it kind of is because we don't install the donuts in Izumi. It's not something that we offer, so somebody put it in.
And it's not designed for it, it would seem.
Yeah, so we sell Izumis plain offset, and we also sell them with a split E mechanism. So if it's got a donut in there, somebody put it in, and if that's the case, I mean, you can change the style of the donut. It's probably the plain round one, the circular one, instead of the half moon crescent one. You can get it changed out if you want, or get a second flute with a split E mechanism. Not that I'm in sales mode, but hey, what the heck?
I mean, what's better than one Izumi too, right?
One for each hand.
You have the one that has the split E. You can have just the offset. We do the inline. If you want to have the C sharp trill key, get that one too. I mean, it's just...
The nice thing is that the donuts are removable, like if especially aftermarket ones where it's not from the factory, with the exception of the Sankyos, they're actually built into the body, and I believe the Nagahara ones might be built.
Some of the
I might
Powell
be
ones
wrong about
were
that.
as
Don't.
well,
I've seen a
But like
I think
where it's like actually part of the tube. But any of the other, like the donuts and stuff like that, you can just pop them out if you don't like them, and you can always put them back in if you changed your mind.
yes, and like
Yeah, if the A is flat, just you can get a custom made one done, either soldered in one, or even the Delrin or plastic one. Just cut it to the nice shape that you need to help with that.
Yep.
So
and, yeah,
but it's not officially a Zumi. We don't install them. We don't supply them that way. So somebody did that aftermarket, and check with your dealer. See, they might have done it, or who knows.
And it's not an Izumi specific problem. The lowering of the A with the donut in is a donut related issue. It actually has nothing to do. It'll do that on every flute make. So just
It's better with
clarify.
coffee though. If you're gonna have donuts, you might as well have coffee.
This is true. If you have coffee, it'll help raise the pitch a
most
little.
things are better with coffee. Yes, I think that's something we can universally agree on.
Yeah, you get a little bit of heat, you get a little pitch rise. It's all good. It's like...
Awesome. So we had another question which was from Kim, but I think you kind of already answered that in terms of how
about the blend between
everybody's all interconnected in the flute making in the companies. And Rachel has a question.
Sarah, pick me. I have a topic to introduce.
Ooh.
Not a
Did
question.
you pay your $3?
Oh, that's $4. It's $4. It applies to one specific individual who's listening.
I thought I was VIP.
Sorry.
Okay, so you mentioned the seam tube. It made me think of this, which is like just my overall impression of Altus. It's something that I think they do really well. It seems like their philosophy is, by and large, that traditional flute making, when done really, really well, can achieve a very precise result. They don't do pinless mechanism. They're using traditional pads. They do offer things like seams tube, which very few manufacturers now offer. So discuss. I think that's a very interesting thing about Altus flutes. And for example, the pinned mechanism, it's old school. We've been doing it this way for 170 years or whatever, and those things feel amazing. So
yeah, there's Altus makes so many different varieties of even just alloys, the construction techniques, the design of stuff. We have sterling. We do Britannia silver. We do Altus limited silver. There's the 997 sintered tube, which we talked about, which is completely unique construction, and how we do that. And there's also the seam tube 958 silver. So I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with all the different, just the silvers that are involved that Altus makes in the various series. I probably should talk a little bit about the difference in the two seam tube flutes, which is the 1607 and the 1807.
Yes.
And
yes, please.
Construction is the same on those. So it's not a question of construction between those two models. The big difference in those two models is the type of silver that's used. So on the 1607, it's a 958 silver. It's our Britannia silver standard alloyed flute, which is 95.8% silver, and the rest is common metal, copper, zinc, etc., that you would use to complete the alloy. The Altus Limited is very special silver. It's 946, so 94.6.
Okay.
The thing that makes it different is when that flute was created, it was designed to what Tanaka wanted to do was try to recreate the sound of the Louis Lot flute, which is why we make the seam tubes in the first place. And again, going back to Wibb's influence and his love of the old French flutes as well, you've got the 1807 design of the alloy in particular being 946, but not a common alloy in that there's no copper or zinc in it at all. It's a combination of 18 precious metals that are contained with
I'm going to play it again now. It's been a while since
yeah,
I didn't know that last time I played one.
Yeah, it's a very unique blend of,
Cool.
and this goes back to the whole Louis Lot alloy, which also didn't have copper or zinc. Uh,
I didn't know
there's
that
been a
either.
lot of tests over the years over what the alloy in the Louis Lot flute was, and people claim that it was, there was the moniker dirty silver, which, all this stuff they tried to figure out what is in the alloy of the Louis Lot flute that made it sound, so great. And, it's just that the refinement of silver back then was not as good as it is today. And, most of the sound of the flute goes back to the seam tube. 16 and 1807s are thin wall flutes. They're the same thickness as gold. They're around 12 thousandths. So if you have a regular head joint, you can put gold head joints on those, or you have to
Sweet.
put a very thin head joint on the 16 or 18s. But the seam tube is a standard seam tube construction that if you look at it, the craftsmanship is magnificent on it. You're not going to see the seam on there, and they're very light as a result, which is another thing that people like. There's a trend with some of the Altus players that we hear about concerning weight of the flute. There's some players who like the actual physical weight of the flute to be very light. So they want flute, they'll go with inline, no C-sharp trill key, no extra mechanics. Even some of them want to go to a C foot because they want the lightest flute possible.
Mm-hmm.
So 16 and 18 are the optimal choice for them, because you strip all that off and the thin silver tube, it's very lightweight. Gold is a lot more dense, so it's heavier. So that like to go towards this, this nice light flute in the 16 and the 18.
Wow.
We don't offer it in the States. You could special order it, but they will do those in heavy wall as well. Altus also makes our standard wall. On certain models, we make at least we offer it in the States, the 13s and the 15s mostly, which is the drawn hole versus solder tone hole Britannia silver flute. We offer the standard wall, we offer a medium heavy wall, and we offer the heavy wall. So the standard wall is a 0.38. Our medium heavy is 0.4, which is considered more standard in the Japanese flutes, and then the 0.43 millimeter heavy wall tube as well. Again, whatever head joint you get with it depends on what we have in stock at the time too. But there are players in Europe, they will do heavy wall or various, whichever your choice of thickness is, by special order on 16 and 18. 17 again doesn't apply, as you could probably understand, because of the way it's constructed. They don't have different mold tubes to compact and sinter a 997 because it's built in a mold. It's done differently.
Right.
So, but the rest of them you can do in the different thicknesses.
Wow. So with all of these options, like, who's driving the bus on making all of those decisions about like what do we offer next? Like who, and how do they how do you juggle having that many different options going, and how do you get to decide when you get to add a new one?
Well, I do know how to juggle.
Well, okay, now we're gonna have to see this.
Do you have things to? What do you
juggling with soup?
Piccolos?
Well, what we try not to overwhelm people with too much stuff, so we tend to keep in stock the stuff that most people want. But if somebody wants something special, we've had requests for a gold clad 17, pristine silver flute, pure silver flute, the PS, with complete engraving. So we have two of our artists who play that, and I had one of those flutes came in. I don't know if he's listening. Rick Noyce is out there, and I think Chris Lee has one as well. I remember when that flute came in and I saw it, it's like, this is gorgeous. It's just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And then we also make the stuff that very few people want to. You can get open G sharp as an option, and we do open G sharp because Dennis Barakov plays open G sharp.
Have you seen a rise in requests for that flute since he's kind of, catapulted into fame?
Can we start a petition for
Are
more
you the open
open
G
G
sharp
sharp?
fan on this forum? Is that what it is? Is you?
That would be Kim.
I am.
I'm a theoretical
me.
fan, but I've never actually played one. So, if anyone wants to
Yeah,
send me an
Sarah
open
wrote a
G sharp
paper
flute,
on it. I actually played
Yeah,
one.
I've played an open G sharp flute. Actually, when I was in Connecticut, you may actually see it
I love
someday.
flute.
There's
Really?
a customer
Oh, you
of
don't name me. Sorry.
yeah, there's a customer of mine who has it's a wooden Louis lot with an open G sharp,
I
and
want to see that.
it was magnificent flute that
Yeah.
I repadded for him many
Rachel's
years ago.
fanning herself.
Sorry, I love
And
it.
I got to play it and it's kind of like, okay, I got to get used to this. What am I doing here? And then I was playing that, and then I went back to another flute, and it was kind of like, I'm so confused.
It's true. My only saving grace is that all of my metal flutes are standard flutes, and the contemporary ones. My wood flute is an open G sharp flute. So my brain does have enough of a, we're playing something totally different. It's a totally different, but yeah, I'd love to have another, like a metal open G sharp. I think they're great.
Well, you can modify a flute pretty easily. Yeah.
With all of my free time.
If you got a flute with a split E, just plug up that.
Oh, it's easy. Yeah, with a split
Yeah,
E, it would be super easy to do. It's just kind of one of those, like, with all of my free
Well,
time.
you should.
I mean, I can't even get groceries.
You're a tech. You could do it and you play around with
Adam's
it.
got free time.
I have a question for Joe when we have a second.
Oh yes, yeah.
Because we've gone around in circles about open G sharp with other people for hours, almost.
David Cooley of Trevor James is a huge fan. So if anybody out there wants to talk about G sharp, he's your man.
You mentioned someone had once requested a gold clad, and I remember I've always wondered, well, how is that different than plating?
Well, it's not, except that gold cladding is generally is a bit heavier.
Right. That's kind of what I always
Thicker.
think. But of course, when you're on a show floor, even if you're a technician, there's always that coy response to it. And I'm thinking, well, I might just have to twist your arm later, and we'll just figure it out.
But I will tell you that the plating is thick enough where I've had flutes that come in and that have pretty good scratches in the plating. And when you get scratches in plating, you hesitate to buff it.
Yeah.
And I've had no problem buffing scratches out of our plating.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's a good layer of
right. I'm
I think
usually resistant to acknowledge that plating changes anything the way it sounds, but I remember I was at NFA in Vegas. That was when Liz was still there. I think, were you still at Pearl back then?
probably, yeah.
Yeah, and I played, they had just introduced the Etsui like gold and platinum clad, and I played them both back to back. I loved the platinum clad, but Liz was just like, no, you sound better on the gold.
But the platinum clads are so pretty.
Yeah, they're nice.
Yeah, the gold clads, whenever you're adding something to the flute, you're not making it a heavy wall flute, but the cladding does add to the tubing thickness, especially when it's
right.
substantial and robust enough that it's going to have an effect on that. And given the price point, the 1207 model flute that we have is the one that is most often gold clad. It's a good price point. It doesn't break the piggy bank for a flute. It's a sterling silver flute with gold clad over it. And we'll do the platinum clad. Incidentally, for your viewers out there, platinum clad right now is not available from the Altus factory. So it's limited to what we have in stock.
Oh, run out and get those now.
Yes. So
Yeah,
they're nice.
Platinum clad today.
Okay.
And we don't sell a lot of platinum clads, again, because the price, platinum cladding adds obviously a lot of moolah to the price. But the ones that we've had have just been fantastic. The surface from the platinum cladding is really hard too. It's really hard, really durable finish. It's hard to scratch.
Wow.
when it's on there. It's really something.
It doesn't tarnish.
It doesn't tarnish either.
Too resistant to different chemistry in the atmosphere. Unlike silver, it's not active.
I like
it's a nice option for some people.
I like that flute. I was like, I don't care if I sound warmer on the gold. I like the zing power. Like I can blow away the second flutist, and it's not a problem because I'm just
Yeah.
Chair perks.
Adam's real motivations for playing in a flute section come out.
I did once. I played
all of ours.
And I forget what orchestra I was playing with, but there was one comment, and it was in the critique, and it was that the first flutist was too loud, and that was me. Yes.
Well done.
Oh, that's lovely.
I wanted to talk about Altus pinned mechanism because it feels like a pinless flute. Like it's so smooth. Like, normally on a pinned flute you might have a little bit more you can feel that like rolling resistant on the pinned keys. And I do not perceive that at all, even on like the intro level Altus flutes. It's very impressive to me.
Yeah, they just do an excellent job of key fitting. The tubing, the key reaming is all
the finish on the inside of the tubing.
The finish on the inside of the tubing, the facing is all really done quite remarkably. The Artist Series flutes, the ones that are more that we sell most of, which are more mass produced, and they're more machine made. They're more heavily finished in Japan. The tying in the talk we had before about the partnership between Jupiter and Altus. Taiwan supplies the basic keywork components for the Artist Series to Japan so they can make flutes out of them. So, the handmade flutes, 1207 and up, done the traditional way, file, casting, assembly. The interchangeable parts, an 807, a 907, and an 1107, you're more likely to be able to get, buy a part. If the key is broken, you need a replacement and it'll fit. Whereas, 1207 and up, if you need to have a key replacement, they're going to want it back. It has to go to Japan because they got to make it because they're all handmade. So, again, when the parts come in from KHS, Altus looks at the parts and they'll reject them and say, these are not good enough for us. But it's KHS who's making the parts for them to supply for those flutes. So they have to go through Altus quality inspection before they accept them to make flutes out of them. So again, that's the same level of quality that they're looking at, even though they're not hand making those parts. It's the same process that they're using to create the 8s, the 9s, and the 11s as they do on the 1207. Just they're getting the parts from Taiwan, from KHS Taiwan.
So the finishing is the same, and that's what imparts that final feel and effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, people always ask the difference, between a handmade flute and an intermediate flute, and that's basically what it is. It's the process is the same. On the handmade flutes, everything is truly handmade. At that point, yeah, there are machines that are involved, but the amount of finishing is what makes it perform, the way that it does. The fact that you're mass producing parts in bulk so that you can meet that demand for the supply that's out there. But that doesn't detract from the finishing, but it does save time to be able to produce much more of those. That's why there's so many of them out there. It's easier to find, a collection of 1107 flutes than it is to find a collection of gold flutes for the same reason.
Yeah, makes sense. So we have about 10 minutes left.
I have one question.
Yeah, let's do it.
Just because, well, I have many.
I'm sure it's like
but,
a multi-pronged.
But it is sort of a multi-step question. And this is, we could go to the website, but we have you here. So one of the things that we don't get a lot of education about in Canada is what flutes have optional head joint cuts that can come with them or not. So a lot of the time here, especially when you walk into the store to buy your flute, they have this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and they have like this with it. And if you, a lot of them are on like an auto order system, so when they sell that flute, they get the identical head joint cut along with it. At what point in the line throughout it, obviously not Jupiter probably, but throughout the like the Azumi and the Altus line, at what point can you as an individual pick what head joint you want to have with that
on
flute?
Altus, everything you except for the 807, you have your choice of head joint. Now on Azumi, we only offer the Z cut. Now Europe will offer the Z cut and the S cut. You know, the S is the classic cut. The Z cut is much more popular here, and you know, in talking with the dealers who sell, you know, at the Azumi level, it's too much confusion between at that level to have a choice between head joints. So the Z is the popular one at that level. So that's the one that we have. But Azumi is also available mostly in Europe as an S cut. You could special order one if you really wanted to have one. Yeah, but mostly it's a Z cut. Now, when you get to Altus, the 807 is only available with a classic cut. And once you get to 907 and up, you can get pretty much any one of the three cuts with or without gold risers, etc. You can get them gold clad. We do a gold lip plate and riser option, you know, as well. So that's one thing we didn't talk about is the three different head joint cuts that we offer. The classic was the original, which is still popular. The Z is the more square cut. So take the classic, make it more square, which is, you know, a very popular cut. And then the V cut, which is the latest cut, the most recent cut that we have. It's not new, but it's the most recent, and that follows the trend of it's a very high riser, you know, for a very strong mature player. It's the offset so that the front wall is very tall, and it has the rolled off embouchure plate. You can identify a V very easily from looking at it from what you know we call the bent embouchure plate on it. And so you know, so those are the basic three that we have, and you can get them with gold risers depending on what flute you have and availability. There's, you know, stocking head joints for us. If I stock a Z cut, I need to stock a Z cut in sterling gold clad. I need to also stock it in Britannia silver. I need to do this 1607, a 997, and an 1807. So the amount of head joint cuts that we pair, people, I would imagine, if they wanted to, could pair, you know, a sterling head joint on a Britannia silver flute if they wanted to. But typically, if we sell a flute, it's the same material as the rest of the flute body. Unless there's an odd request over there. Kim, do you have an odd request that maybe we could send you something bizarre?
Well, I do occasionally actually get people who, for financial reasons, want to know whether they can put another Altus head joint cut on their Azumi flutes.
Yeah. They could just order a head joint and try to see if they like.
Yeah, so because flutes in Canada are really, really expensive because of our dollar, we often end up with situations where players just financially can't afford to bump up to like a handmade Altus head joint, so they're going to have to live on their Azumi that they love for just a lot longer than they would ideally like with the one head joint that it came with, and they'd like to explore different options, but stick with the same brand so you don't have, you know, anytime you mix brands, you can run into intonation problems and you can run into matching problems and stuff like that. So maybe I'll talk to you later about, about facilitating that for some of them.
And you know, just like all the other flute manufacturers out there, I mean, we sell head joints separately as well too. So we don't sell the body separately. We sell the flutes complete, but we will sell head joints separately.
Excellent.
Makes sense. Cool.
That's something that players, I don't think, get enough awareness of necessarily, is that those options are available, that you can buy head joints aftermarket, especially when they're growing players. I mean, obviously, once you've been playing and you're playing on handmade instruments, you know more about that. But that high school, I'm going into university sort of age, if they don't get the education from us, they often don't get the education at all. And, you know, it's nice to be able to give that more to them. So.
All right, you want to know what we forgot? What we didn't
what did
talk
we
about?
forget?
We didn't talk about harmony flutes, particularly the
yes
Demore flute.
Right.
Yes, I was literally going to talk about, because I've actually seen one of the Altus Demore flutes before. It was very cool.
Tell us all about them.
Yes, they're we make the low A, and we also make a low B flat. There's controversy over from the purists that there's no such thing as a Demore B flat. Okay, we have a flute that's pitched in B flat as well. And actually, the B flat is the more popular one, mostly because there are some jazz players like it because it's in B flat.
Exactly.
That's the one I saw.
Yeah.
And they play great. They got a great sound to them. I've never seen an A. We have had, if you can believe it or not, we have had some special requests, and I think we have made one and sold one to a customer who requested one that was an open hole model. Which is it's big with the spacing is big, and it's kind of like, you sure about that? It's like, yes, you need to make a deposit on that and guarantee that you're going to buy it, because an open hole B flat Demore flute is not something we want to take a chance on. So apparently the customer's very happy with it, loves it. So
great. They can do all their multisonics.
I've seen one of those. It's kind of like, check this out. This is just kind of like it's pretty cool. So
I'm just thinking, like, I have to plug the open holes in some normal size flutes sometimes when I'm play testing them, just because I'm like, I would have to like make plugs for that flute.
So any other questions on the Demore?
I have. Oh, not on the. Do you?
Okay, no, go.
About that? I have a question from the Peanut Gallery that's currently watching us, though.
Excellent.
What?
They want to know what happened to the. We had somebody who would like to know what happened to the Altus model 1007.
1007. The 1007 is available in Europe. Again, it's another one. We make so much stuff that we don't offer that one here. We could special order it if someone in the U.S. wanted one.
If they loved
it.
Altus
still makes it, but again, it's for the difference in price between the 9 and the 11. Most people just want to go with the 11. At that point.
It's kind of a funny in between, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the sterling silver version of the flute, basically. So if you want sterling silver as opposed to Britannia silver.
Who uses that?
So
yeah, we love it when pets come to visit.
We do. Yes. Nice cameo.
So special appearance. That's all. No.
Fabulous. Well,
you talk for a while, and the cat's like, you're not paying enough attention to me.
Yeah.
So that was a reminder.
You feel neglected.
And the cat was right on time because it's 9 p.m. So.
But I just want to mention one other thing before we go.
Yes, please.
Yes.
The one thing we didn't mention was on the alto flutes. There's 2 keywork designs.
Oh. Okay.
We have an ergonomic keywork design. So on most of the flutes, it looks like a traditional thumb mechanism. We have the one ergonomic design model, the 2.5 model, where the keywork is flipped. So which allows your left hand to be moved up farther. So if you like to play with an inline head joint, which a lot of people do, they don't like the response, get that model, because with the keywork flipped, your left hand is closer. It's not as much of a stretch. Move it closer.
Brilliant.
Now,
I'm assuming all of this information is on the website, and we'll put a link in our little little thing.
Yeah. So
is that correct? It's all available there.
Yes, it should be.
Okay.
Yep.
I had never heard of that. Thank you for bringing that.
Either have I, but now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, it's some people think with the curved head joint they don't like it because their hand is too far forward. but if you play straight head joint, I recommend getting it because it's so comfortable to have it in that configuration.
So just to be clear, though, you have to relearn that B
No,
flat is down instead of...
It works the same. That
Oh.
instead of putting the lever on, to this side, it's on this side. So it works the same. It's just that the placement, they put the lever on the other side.
Okay.
That would probably be really helpful for players that have like arthritis, or we were talking about, but our group was talking about hypermobility today. So if you that would probably be a really good option for players who want to do that and need something that's just a little different.
It resembles the one on the bass flute, but they put it on the alto just for that reason.
Yeah. Well, bass makes more, I mean, it's more comfortable anyway than alto. Yeah. I mean, which is weird, but it's true.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Cool. Thank you, Joe. And we didn't get to talk about your trebuchet or your potato cannon, and that makes me sad.
Or see any juggling.
I mean,
I promise you, I will make a video of me juggling piccolos or something. Sorry, Adam.
Yeah. No, please do.
I love it.
It's like the fire sticks, though. They got to be on fire if I'm
yes.
doing it.
Wow.
Okay, you keep raising this bar on yourself, Joe.
I think that would be a T-shirt if we ever could.
Yeah, there is that video out there of firing a head joint out of a potato cannon into a lumber pile, which is. I'll have to share that with you sometime. It's great because it played afterward. It actually, we took the crown and the stopper out, and we had to pry it out of there, and it played. It played perfectly. It was like the wood that got stuck in there made a perfect stopper. It was great.
We'll drop the link in the comments.
Awesome. What was the model of the alto that you were that has the modified thumb?
I believe they're the ones that end in 2.5. So you get the 821, the 921, the 1021, the 25 models.
We'll have to find out. I will personally put it on our link to find out.
That could be a game changer.
Yes.
Oh, I think because that's something that I've never even seen and I haven't heard of. So the fact that it's available is definitely worth. We call it
the ergonomic keywork. So, but it really is
very cool. If you have additional pictures, maybe send it to us and we can post some. That'd be awesome.
Cool. Hey, awesome. Well, Joe, thank you. This is really fabulous.
Thank you, Joe.
I learned
great. Thanks so
much
much
this evening, and I'm sure everybody else did too. So, and it's always nice to see you in your comfy chair.
Yeah.
We're all working hard. You're on holiday.
Yeah. Until tomorrow when I have to do. How many flutes do you do in a day?
Yeah, one.
How many flutes do I have to do in a day?
Yeah.
I've lived that life though. I mean, I remember them dropping off buckets, literally Rubbermaid buckets of like 35 flutes and going by 4, right? And you go, sure, by 4, right? I remember.
It's fun. Somebody's got to do it.
Yep.
I mean, who else gets to play so many great flutes every day?
Yes.
This is true.
Very true.
This is true.
Excellent.
I love my job. I love my job.
Well, on that note, that is a perfect note to end on. So Joe is, always happy to answer questions. So if this has generated more questions, then, we'll pass them on to him and we'll get answers for anybody who's watching. And thank you everybody for joining us tonight and, or anytime when this is available on YouTube later. You'll be watching this 10 years from now. Who knows?
That's why I didn't wear my Christmas sweater tonight. I thought we need to keep this like it's not a holiday.
Well, you saw how I dressed up.
Did you see what's in your background there, Rachel? Just
it's a poinsettia.
It's trying to eat your head. It's like
it's all good.
Anyway. All right. Well, thank you.
This is great fun. Thank you.
YouTube Lands for tuning in once again. And thank you so much, Joe, once again. And adieu until next time.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.